Hi, welcome back to our lecture videos about assessment. In this video, we will try to understand the different types of tests. These are the types of tests that we are going to discuss. Number one, according to purpose. Number two, according to construction. Number three, according to manner of administration. Number four, according to language mode. Number five, according to scope of content. Number six, according to time limit and difficulty. Number seven, according to effects of bias. And number eight, according to format of objective test. Let us begin with number one, types of tests according to purpose. These are psychological tests and educational tests. Let us begin with psychological tests. It measures students' intelligence of mental ability in large degree without reference to what the students has learned. This aims to measure intangible aspects of behavior such as intelligence, attitudes, interests, and aptitudes. So if you are going to take psychological test, it's not necessary that you are going to study. It's not necessary that you are going to prepare for this kind of exam because you have to use your instincts, you have to use your experiences, you have to use what you believe in, and you have to use your stock knowledge. And this is administered before the instructional process. Examples for this may include intelligence test, aptitude test, prognostic test, personality test, vocational and professional interest inventory. So it's very clear from the first point without reference to what the students has learned. So we are not going to assess what you have learned from your previous experiences, but we are going to reveal, or this test will reveal about your behavior, about your intelligence, attitudes, interests, and aptitudes, which are necessary in the educational process. Now let us go to educational test. This is an achievement test which aims to measure persons' knowledge, skills, abilities, and understanding and other outcomes in the subjects taught in school, and it aims to measure the results or effects of instruction and learning, and this is administered after instructional process. Here, in these types of tests, you really have to study, you really have to prepare because you have to showcase your knowledge, your skills, and abilities. And we are going to certify what you have learned and what are the things that you still need to improve. And examples for these types of tests in educational tests are the National Achievement Test, periodical test, the midterm exams, and the final exams. So in educational tests, these are related to what you have learned in school. Psychological test is not related to what you have learned in school. The next type of test is according to construction. These are the teacher-made test and standardized test. Teacher-made tests, these are tests made by classroom teacher. So this is your teacher in grade 1, your grade 2, in grade 7. So these are the teachers who are teaching the subject. And it covers a narrow range of content so that the test that will be included is limited to what you have discussed. Say, for example, in mathematics, if you talk about variations, so the exam is only about variation. So if you talk about addition of two-digit numbers, so the exam is related only to two-digit numbers. And various types of item are used. So it can be a combination of objective test and subjective test. So you can give identification, you can give true or false, you can give fill in the blanks, you can have labeling test, and you can also have these subjective exams. Say, for example, an essay, or you ask your students to do an artwork, or ask them to summarize something, or ask them to restate. So these are examples of subjective tests. Teacher picks or writes item as needed for the test. And some of these are prepared hurriedly. So the teacher will finalize the exam before the class will begin. And this will be scored by the teacher, especially if this is a subjective test. But if these are objective tests, so for example, multiple choice, Some teachers would let us check our own papers. Now, after the exam, the teacher will give instruction to exchange papers, and then the teacher actually hitting two birds in one stone, no? Checking the papers and explaining what is the correct answer. In that particular situation, it's an opportunity for you to clarify things and to clear misconceptions about the topic. And interpretation is usually criterion reference. So there is a criteria in teacher-made test. Usually it's 50% or 60% passing rate. So if you got a score above 50%, you pass. But if you got a score below the passing rate, meaning you can do better next exam. For standardized tests, these are constructed by professional item writer, or these are a group of experts or pool of experts coming from different schools and universities, and they are convened to write test items on particular exams. And it covers a broad range of content in a subject area and uses mainly multiple choice. Items written were screened and the best items were chosen for the final instrument, and these are prepared carefully and rigidly. So I'm not saying that teacher-made tests are not prepared carefully and rigidly, but there are some situations that teacher-made tests are prepared hurriedly. But here in standardized tests, since these are pool of experts, this will be prepared carefully and rigidly, and the items will be screened, meaning they are going to remove those very difficult questions and they are going to remove those very easy questions. What remains in the test are those average questions or average level of difficulty. And it can be scored by a machine. That is why it uses multiple choice. A good example for this is the licensure examination for teachers, national achievement test. So it uses multiple choice so that it can be scored by a machine and the scores will be revealed right away, because these standardized tests are usually given to a large number of students across different areas. So for example, LET exam, it is a simultaneous exam from Luzon to Mindanao. So that is an example for standardized test. And it possesses validity, reliability, and norms. So these are the major characteristics of standardized test. It has validity, reliability, and norms. These norms, it means that the test underwent item analysis, or it passed item analysis, and the level of difficulty of those questions are on average difficulty. Interpretation of results is usually norm reference, meaning your score will be compared to other test takers who take the same test. That is why after the LET exam, there will be top-notchers, so top 1, top 2, because the score will be compared to others who take the same test. We can still do it in teacher-made test, but the main focus usually of teacher-made test is criterion reference. Here in standardized test, there are still criteria that we need to follow, because in LET exam, that is an example of standardized test, there are a number of students who will pass the LET exam, and there are also a number of students who fail to pass the exam. Those students who pass the exam, those are the list of students wherein their scores will be ranked from highest to lowest. That is how we identify the top-notchers. And examples for this are LET exam, National Achievement Test, NCAI, NCEE, and CSE. And there are other forms of standardized tests we can take. So this is the teacher-made test made by classroom teachers, standardized test made by pool of experts. The next type of test that we are going to discuss is according to the manner of administration. These are individual tests and group tests. Individual tests mostly given orally or requires actual demonstration of skills. So this is performance-based assessment when you say you ask the students to demonstrate their skills, or it could be to showcase their outputs or products or to do an exhibit. One-on-one situation thus many opportunities for clinical observation, though time-consuming. Now, let us say they are going to showcase their output and the observer or the rater or the teacher having some confusions about the output or the presentation. So the teacher may ask questions for clarifications, for points of emphasis, so that the students would be able to send the right message, because there are some situations that the message that you are trying to send is not the same message as we receive. And there is a chance to follow up examinee's response in order to clarify or comprehend it more clearly. But this is time consuming because there are situations that it's not the teacher alone who will ask questions. Some classmates will also, or some classmates of the presenters will also give their comments. They will also ask questions for points of clarification. Here in group test, this is usually paper and pencil test. Lose the report, insight, and knowledge about each examinee. So it's not necessary that you know each of the students who are taking the exam. So for example, you are just a proctor. As long as they have the test permit, then they can take the exam. Same amount of time needed to gather information from a lot of students. So say, for example, you have 30 students in a class. So you just have to distribute the test papers, give the instruction once, and you will only maximize a certain period of time for them to provide data, no, to the questions that you are trying to gather. And after a certain period of time, you are done with the test. But here in individual test, this is time consuming because even if you are going to inform your students to prepare a presentation in 10 to 15 minutes, but some of them would go beyond on that particular time. And if it is a group activity, I have multiple experiences with this that, so for example, the person bringing the materials is not around. So you really have to reschedule or you have to extend the time. And if you are using electricity and unfortunately the electric power is not cooperating, there's a brownout, so you have to reschedule. Here in group test, as long as they have their pen or they have their pencil and you prepared your test papers, you can facilitate this. The next type of test that we are going to discuss is according to language mode. These are verbal test, non-verbal test, and performance test. A verbal test is paper and pencil test variety, but questions may be presented orally or in written form of objects may be presented for identification. The answers, however, are given in words, usually written, but sometimes given orally. So here in verbal test, it uses or maximizes a lot of words. In the non-verbal test, this is a test which a minimum amount of language is used. This is composed mostly of symbols and numbers. And examples for this are mathematics, computations, solving. Most of this uses numbers and symbols. And we have here the performance test. This is also a non-verbal test, but the pupils or learners may be required to use paper and pencil for responding or manipulation of physical objects and materials. An example of this test is the arrangement of blocks. This is also used with the person with language difficulty. So it uses paper and pencil test, but it doesn't use objects or symbols or words. So you can have this in artwork. So that can be a performance test. The next type of test that we are going to discuss is according to the scope of content. And these are survey test and mastery test. Survey test covers a broad range of objectives which measures the general achievements in certain subjects. And these are constructed by trained professionals or the pool of experts. These survey tests are usually expressed in standardized tests. So, for example, we have the National Achievement Test. Though we are trying to measure the level of intelligence and the achievement of students, it can be used in many ways. It can provide information on a survey on how schools are performing with respect to the national standards. And we have here the mastery test. It covers a specific objectives which measures fundamental skills and abilities. This is typically constructed by classroom teachers. So if you have noticed, survey test is standardized test and this mastery test are teacher-made tests. Number 6, types of tests according to time limit and difficulty. So these are power test and speed test. Power test consists of the series of items arranged in ascending order of difficulty from easy to difficult. And it measures a student's ability to answer more and more difficult items. So in power test, increasing level of difficulty. In speed test, it consists of items approximately equal in difficulty. Measure student speed or rate and accuracy in responding within the time imposed. So if you are taking these power test and speed test, it's not necessary that you are going to finish these exams. But because these exams are time bounded, and of course, it measures your accuracy, the number of correct answers after taking the exams. Again, power test, increasing level of difficulty, speed test, the same level of difficulty. And speed test is also called alertness test. Number 7, types of tests according to effect of bias. And these are objective tests and subjective tests. Objective test, scorer's personal judgment does not affect the scoring because there's only one answer that satisfies the requirement of statement or STEM. STEM means it is the question. Little or no disagreement on what is the correct answer. Example of these objective tests are multiple choice. And if you are having this multiple choice, answer key is very important. And we have here little or no disagreement on what is the correct answer. There are really some students who will try to challenge your answers because they are also knowledgeable. They are also they use their background knowledge, their instinct in answering the questions, and they will try to rationalize and reason out why is it that their answer is wrong, and they would try to insist that their answer will be the correct answer. So that's why we have here little or no disagreement on what is the correct answer. And that is why scorer's personal judgment does not affect the scoring, because we really have to base on the answer key. If the correct answer is letter A and the student answered letter A, then of course you have to give a check. Here in subjective test, affected by scorer's personal opinion, bias, or judgment, because several answers are possible. So that's one difference between objective test and subjective test. In objective test, there's only one acceptable answer. In subjective test, there are many ways to express answers. Possible disagreement on what is the correct answer might be experienced here in subjective test. Keywords are important, especially if you are checking essays. Now, keywords are important. And we also have here short answer. Sometimes if you are checking essay, whether we like it or not, even if the teacher would say penmanship won't matter, based on my experience and based on my conversations with other teachers, penmanship would really matter, especially if The penmanship is very hard to read. Of course, we are looking for the keywords. The next type of test that we are going to discuss is according to the format of objective test. These are selective type of test and supply type of test. Selective type of test ask the examinee to choose the correct answer from the given option. So for example, multiple choice. So there are 4 options. 1 is the correct answer and 3 are distractors. Distractors, jokers, or decoys. But you have to make sure that these 3 other options are plausible or closely related to the correct answer, because you are not going to make it obviously easy for the students to answer. And it can be answered quickly. And this is prone to guessing and cheating. Guessing, especially if you don't know what is the correct answer, you just have to wish your luck or you have to bet on something. And I have this strategy way back when I was still a kid, the bintot. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And this is time consuming to construct. As what I've told you, in multiple choice, there is 1 correct answer and you have to make 3 distractors, but these 3 distractors must be closely related to the correct answer. Examples for this are multiple choice, true or false. We also have matching type because there are options that students can choose. In supply types of tests, there are no choices for the answer, which requires the examinee to provide answers. So examples for this are fill in the blanks, closed test. So there are no options and the students will provide their answer. Preparation of items is relatively easy and only few questions are needed. And it lessens the chance to guess the correct answer. However, this is time consuming to score because you really have to consider this one. You have to consider the synonyms. You have to consider the tenses of the verb. And bluffing is a problem. Sometimes, especially if that is identification, they don't know what is the correct answer. They will write the name of their pet. They have to write the name of their classmates. So that is bluffing. Examples for this are short answer, completion, and we can also have essays for this. And that would be all. Thank you so much for staying up until this time. And let me give due credit to slidesmania.com for allowing me to use this PowerPoint template. Bye-bye.